Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Yes, welcome back to the regular intro of our beloved show, our beloved program, the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's answering the whys and hows. Episode
Streets back.
254. 254 is in the building. Man, feels good. It's a Friday. Me and Johnny are now enemies as the Dubs take on the Portland Trailblazers tonight. So there's that.
Look, no. Look,
Dubs looking good. Blazers are jailblazers. Take them all to jail with Chauncey Billups.
You can't even do anything about that with Warriors Trailblazers, because the coach was just arrested by the FBI for
Chauncey Billups,
allegedly.
No,
you have to say allegedly.
I know,
for legal
reasons.
The
FBI's listening to our
allegedly being catfishing people into rigged poker games.
That is
selling
wild.
his personal
that is so wild.
Like,
I know
presence.
I know we don't have to get into the whole thing, but dude, go, if you have not seen this, just Google it. Yeah, because we're not going to get into basketball talk. We're going to make everybody upset. But seriously, if you
here's the thing though. Here's what honestly, and maybe it's just me being paranoid. Maybe it's just me being overreactionary by seeing something like this, because Chauncey Billups isn't named in the FBI probable cause in their affidavits, but you can figure it out. It's him. He's person number 8 in the releases, because it says it's a guy who played the exact years he played, was a head coach in the NBA for that started in the exact year he started with the Trailblazers. That individual also was leaking information on who was playing, who wasn't playing, and that the Portland Trailblazers were planning on tanking that year. It's that he was leaking this to the Italian mafia, the Gambino family, and others.
It's crazy, man.
Absolutely wild in that. But I mean, honestly, it really does make you kind of stop and go, when you consider that they were making all this money off the sports betting. I mean, which has been a thing with the mob for a long time, right? That you used to rig fights, prize fights and stuff, but you felt like it wasn't getting into the major leagues of baseball and basketball and football, that they'd had some kind of safeguards around that. When you see an NBA head coach has been compromised in this way, and there's a player that clearly removes himself from a game for injury that wasn't injury related, because he was going to hit one of the sports betting of more or less of a stat kind of bets, and he got right up to it, was about to break it, and then had an injury, Rozier, and pulled himself out of the game.
Right.
So it didn't. And there was, the mob, basically, they had all these small guys have 100 different betting accounts, 200 different betting accounts that all bet the same way. They cash out and then they go buy a service from a shell company. And um, when you have a head coach that has been compromised in the NBA like that, I really sit here and go, we don't have full-time referees in the NFL. They're not monitored outside when they're outside of the game, kind of um time frame. We have referees that have unaccounted for revenue streams because most of them work a separate job other than their NFL refereeing. It really does make me wonder, about some of the crazy no calls. You go back to the Saints
The
Rams game,
Rams, yeah, I was just thinking that.
that non PI. It makes you wonder about some of the 49ers Chiefs games. I mean, it really does make you wonder about some of these, because when a team goes up 10 points and then there's suddenly like $100 million in bets placed, that the Chiefs can still come back against that, and then you see these wild plays where there's suddenly no penalties called. I mean, maybe I'm being paranoid, Adam. Talk me off the ledge here.
No, I am on
Or
the ledge with you. I think
like
it's bad.
like, I'm not saying that's what happened. It just makes me wonder. It
Right.
really does, because this whole thing has put a massive shadow over all the major sports. See, I know it's only in the NBA, but it really does make me go, the NFL needs to figure out what they got to do to put some safeguards up, at least to have some sort of accountability,
Right.
and serious accountability, to make sure that this isn't happening in the NFL. Because right now, the trust in the NBA and the league is at an all-time low. And so, yeah.
Yeah. The if
What's my favorite mob?
Cayman's
Okay,
Island
Gotti.
podcast
We must have
says,
John Gotti in
yeah.
the chat.
Um, Cayman's Island podcast earlier had said, if you don't think this is happening in the NFL, you are in denial. I mean, there is more money to be made in the NFL than the NBA, in my opinion. And so I think that across football, there's gotta be stuff going on. But we'll wait and see. It just happened. So obviously it's the
You are
talk of the
in the
town.
river Nile, is what he's saying. You're in
Yes.
denial.
So yeah. All right, let's get to some Smash Mouth football, because we're thinking that's the kind of game that D'Amico is gonna get geared up for us, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what are your
in a
thoughts?
throwback, I guess we could segue throwback from the Italian mob, which was really big way back in the day, and it had its moments. I'm pretty certain that my family, we changed our last name to get away from them. We were from Youngstown, Ohio, moved, and apparently the accountant at my great grandfather's job could not spell his last name, and so they changed it to something that isn't even very close. um and supposedly that's why they changed the name, but my dad asked about it one time and his mom told him, don't you ever ask about that. And
Yeah.
there were a bunch of Italians from Youngstown, Ohio, maybe related to the Yorks, I don't know. And that happened, but that was something that happened way back in the day. And just like things happened way back in the day, this is going to be a game that looks that way. If you go back to games out of the 80s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, points were much harder to come by. I remember, going back and watching a couple of the old Steve Young 49ers games, that there's still some full games on YouTube and stuff, and looking at it, and it was like going into the fourth quarter, 13-9. And that was a great game. Like the commentators were remarking about how great of a game it had been.
Yeah.
And that was very common in the NFL. You go into the fourth quarter 13-9, the game is going to end 20-12, sort of a thing, or 20-16. And that was a good game. That was a really good game. You don't see those low scoring games as much. They are starting to come back a little bit more as defenses kind of figure out how to take some things away. But back in the day, it was about physical hitting. I mean, gosh, they'd take your head off. Physical hitting, lots of run plays, uh, limited passing game, and it was just a game about don't turn the ball over and make some plays in big moments, but it was going to be a commitment to the run and to playing defense. Those were the things that were really big in the league. And that's what you're going to see this weekend. Both teams are going to try and stay committed to the run. They're going to stay committed to stopping the run, and they're going to be making it really hard for the other team to score points. The Texans aren't the greatest point scorers in the league. Of course, they've had a couple weeks where they've dropped a ton of points, but they're looking not so great coming off their game against the Seahawks. And so, I mean, this is that Texans defense is phenomenal. They are absolutely phenomenal. D'Amico Ryans, the job he's doing with that defense down there is just incredible. And the 49ers got to go on the road. They're still banged up in a lot of ways. So, I mean, this is going to be an old school football game. And you just wonder, it almost reminds me like this season. One of my daughters was watching it this morning, Trolls World Tour, right? Have you seen that movie, Adam?
I do not have any kids that I know of, so no.
Okay, well, fair enough. But if for those who have kids and seen the movie, the plot line is that these two people they kidnap the trolls and they're sucking the talent out of them to be able to infuse talent in themselves and make themselves great. And so they're like killing the trolls slowly by sucking the talent out of them to live off of it. And this almost feels like the 49ers have done that with Christian McCaffrey, that they are just sucking the health out of other players to keep Christian McCaffrey going. So every week you lose a player, but Christian McCaffrey still stays on the field. Yeah. So, I mean, it almost feels like that's what's going on.
How long can that last?
How many players can you go through? Like at this point, let's start putting some of the practice squad guys into that vacuum.
Yeah. So let's dive into some of these whys and hows. I'm looking at some of the numbers on the Texans, and I want to reiterate what was it Quiffball? Hold on, let me scroll. Who was it that said the offensive line for the Texans is just like the worst? And that's what I was looking at. Is Quiffball. The Texans O-line is completely clueless. And yes, that is Space Jam, what you just mapped out there, by the way.
No.
A little bit.
Sort of. I mean, a little bit. Look, it's Trolls World Tour. They stole the plot line. Okay, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
I do want to. This is completely unrelated, but this is my ADHD kicking in. Youngstown. I don't know if the DeBartolos are really screwed out of team ownership. Denise DeBartolo, who's Denise York, she still owns the team. She's technically the owner. So they have the controlling interest, and her son is Jed. That was a family arrangement because basically the family pressured Eddie into
there was
over the team.
Fight. There was a fight, basically.
But it was a family fight. Sure. It wasn't like the NFL came in and told them, Eddie, you have to leave, and Denise, you're going to take over. Remember, Eddie was charged with not reporting a felony because he was trying to get a gambling license in Louisiana. The lieutenant governor required a payment. It was $250,000 to get that gambling license. It was an extortion, and Eddie didn't call the FBI and say, "Hey, this guy's extorting me." Remember, they also had a casino company and the land development company. The DeBartolos started out as building malls in America. That was their development thing. And they made their money doing that and bought the 49ers for the Marabitos. So like the family technically owned the 49ers. Eddie was the face of it. And when everything happened with that, he was suspended by the league for a year. And the internal family thing was one of embarrassment. They said, Eddie, you're going to go run the land development side of it, and the business side of it of the company will take the 49ers. And so because they didn't want him out in the public after that. And so that's where the split came. And Eddie's doing very well for himself. I think he's worth like $10 billion now. He took the development side and made it really great. So I mean, like it wasn't just like that the league screwed him out of owning the team. That was a family split, and that's why he didn't he wasn't involved, like he wasn't around the team for a very long time. And it was a really special moment when Eddie came back. It was at the 2012 NFC Championship game. He was there to help receive the trophy for winning the NFC Championship game when they were going to the Super Bowl, and that Eddie and Denise had really kind of mended fences there over that. And Eddie's been around sometimes over that. That is really good to see. Anyways, the Texans offensive line, it was interesting. I talked about this with if you didn't catch it yesterday, Adam popped in for a few moments under a different moniker, the Sports Idiot Nation moniker, into the preview show I did yesterday with the Houston Stressins.
The
We had
Stressins.
yeah,
the
we
Stressins, they are stressing. That was
we had a great crossover episode. He's very into the Houston Texans, and he was hosting and graciously had invited me on, and we broadcast on both our channels, and we had a great conversation about it. And one thing, I went and looked at some of the Texans' film, and this is the challenge they're going through of saying, okay, are we going to go from a style that we have an answer to everything built in? It may not be a great answer, but we at least have an answer. It may be a 3-yard pass on 3rd and 9. That may be our only answer in this particular look, because that's the 10% chance of what they're going to run. Or do you say, well, we're going to have our quarterback prepare for the top 4 looks that they're going to get, or even the top 2 looks that we're going to get, and he can adjust the protections, and we're going to try and hold up longer and get a pass that's 12 yards down the field on 3rd and 9. And that's the struggle they're going through, because that doesn't always work. You see that I saw that on the play. CJ Stroud had a sack for like an 18-yard loss. Everybody said it was a safety. It was not a safety. Okay, there's a misunderstanding of the rules. Just because a player is running backwards and then gets touched and still is running backwards,
forward progress.
The moment he's touched, the forward progress is stopped. So it doesn't matter if he's moves into the end zone. The moment any sort of contact was made to initiate the tackle, that is forward progress. The tackle would have to be ceased and then start over again for it not to be forward progress. But anyways, in that, they kept a tight end and a running back in the block against this pressure, and CJ Stroud, they didn't have a great answer against it. And you go, okay, well, that's part of what's going to happen. You're going to have some plays like that if you go this route. That happened with Tom Brady. Everybody goes back and they only look at like the times that Tom Brady was adjusting their protections and it worked. And they say, well, that's what we need to give to Brock Purdy. That's what we need to give to CJ Stroud, because they've had some issues with protection at some really crucial moments. And you say, yeah, but we're not going to talk about the times where it didn't work.
Yeah.
It's not even like, if you're really, really good at that, you still only have about a 33% success rate. So this isn't like it's a plus sort of change that the Texans have gone through, and they're seeing that. You don't always win, and you're now putting more on a quarterback who has never had to do that in college and his first few years in the NFL. And he's gone from one play style of keeping his eyes one place before the snap to now he's got to bounce his eyes and stay, and like the heart rate can't get up. You have to stay on, where am I looking on everything? I have to be on the timing of doing this. You have longer plays that are coming in for this. I mean, you go back to some of the old play calls, they're about half as long as the play calls today, because you didn't have nearly as many shifts and motions. So, like, if you're going to do that, you can't do nearly as many shifts and motions. And so there's this weird disconnect where it's like the Texans can't figure out exactly who they are on offense. Are you going to be a shift and motion team? Are you going to be a team that use shifts and motions to give you advantages in the run game? Are you one that use shifts and motions to harvest information for your quarterback? But are you then going to free up his mind to not have to make the protection calls? Because if you're trying to harvest data as you move, as you're moving pieces around, it is a lot to put on anybody. And even Tom Brady didn't do this at a high rate, and Peyton Manning surely didn't do it at a high rate of usage of all these shifts and motions, while having to adjust protections, while having to declare the mic, while having to still recognize the any potential change in coverages and harvest that data. Peyton Manning played in this, and he would do all those adjustments. But Peyton Manning also only ran out of like 2 and 3 formations almost his entire career, and they used very little shifts and very little motions. Like they just didn't do a lot of that stuff. And what his play caller was calling in, people thought that his play caller was calling in like rough ideas of plays. No, he would call in, he would say, okay, I want to go with a dagger. And so Peyton Manning would then, tell, okay, you're going to be on the streak, you're going to be on the dig, you're going to be on the shallow cross. He'd say, I want to go lion. Okay, we're going on a slant, you're going on a slant. That's what they would do, but it wasn't near he just didn't have the shifts and motions near at the rate that the 49ers do and that what the Texans had before. I mean, we're talking like triple the rate of all those shifts and motions and sometimes multiple shifts and motions. You're trying to do all that stuff. That's a lot on your quarterback. And it's not that CJ Stroud can't handle shifts like doing protections and things. It's you're really putting an incredible amount on his plate. And this is a kid that didn't have to do that in college. Tom Brady did that in college. He didn't do it in college. Tom Brady probably did it back in high school. Like, there's just guys have years of doing this before they get here. And now CJ Stroud's got that on his plate this year, and it looks like a hot mess a lot of times. And where the offensive line is just their protections are weird. You don't see good answers, and it's like it's all isn't cohesive. And I'm like, okay, if the Texans are going to commit to this kind of way, this is probably a 2 to 3 year project. This is not a simple, like, you just change this and adjust the way you're going about this season and you're going to get plus. No, there's going to be an adjustment period, and they're finding that out right now. So, this is a good case study for the argument that people said Brock Purdy needs to do this. Yes, Brock Purdy's a very bright guy and he can handle a lot. You're asking, like, you would either ask Kyle Shanahan to use less shifts and motions, fewer formations, or do this with Brock Purdy. Like, there's going to be an opportunity cost with going this direction.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going on.
So is there something that CJ Stroud has shown you? I know you don't study Houston Texans film per se, but is there something that you see in CJ Stroud this year that you take a look at now against us and say, okay, there is some things that he does at a high level, and not full blast here. How about that level?
That's better. That's better.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's much better. That's
for our ears.
Wonder if I can drop in something here. Okay, now it's taking forever. That's a good one for
that is terrible.
For the super chat.
Elevator music.
It's nice and chill.
Yeah.
But do you think the Niners missed an
podcast.
opportunity by not trading for a pass rusher for this game? 6-2 would be a big deal, and you're down Nick Bosa, and you're down Bryce Huff.
Look, Cayman has been on this for a month. Pass rusher. Do we trade for a pass rusher? Trade for a pass rusher. Like, man, I think someone wants
can
a
you
pass
blame
rusher.
him? Can you blame him? I mean, you start looking around, and it's like the old John Travolta, gif of like looking around, like where is anything? There's nothing here. You got your cupboard is very
Bryce
bare.
Huff is hurt, right?
Yeah, and he got hurt on the last play on defense.
So frustrating.
Running a stunt, and he pulled his left hammy, like taking an inside move to draw the tackle, to free up Tatum Bethune. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
But you can make the call, Johnny, since you are connected.
You can, and I guess looking around the league, I feel like there's a few teams that are still like desperately holding on to hope, that don't want to really throw in the towel, because trading assets at this point really does say we're kind of throwing in the towel.
Yeah, and the locker room, you got to have somewhat of a strong locker room, which you assume you maybe don't. If you're that bad, you assume that maybe the locker room isn't the best.
The Ravens traded Owa, and they were coming from the perspective like, our issue is it isn't depth there. We can trade somebody to get some assets. We're needing to get our offense back on track, and our defense is just really still a sieve no matter who's out there. And it wasn't gonna make them much worse, is what they were looking at. You look at the Jets, and I'm like, they are such a poorly run team from top to bottom. I mean, Sam Darnold was there, and everybody was certain that Sam Darnold was absolute trash. Sam Darnold is now, for a second year in a row, is leading one of the best teams in the NFL. Um, Nobody succeeds there. Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets and looked like suddenly he had turned into Sam Darnold. And then, now he's with the Steelers, and the Steelers are doing great. Are doing pretty well. They did lose to Joe Flacco Bengals, but like nobody does well there in New York. With the Jets. They're a terribly run team. Steve Young was making comments about that. That just systemically the Jets are terrible. Their owner's terrible. The way that they run their organization is terrible. They fired Robert Saleh when he was 3-5. Or was it 2-4? I mean, it was early in the year. Like they ended up firing him and then losing almost every game after that.
He was only
It's
like
just,
one game out or so. I remember you saying this. Like
yeah,
he was
it
only
was
one game away from.
ridiculous the way that they fired Robert Saleh. And so like the Jets are just terrible. And so I don't expect a terribly run organization to hand over assets that would make sense. Like they're not going to do the moves that make sense. Like it would make sense to trade one of your guys right now to a team that really needs it to gain some
Well,
assets for future building. But they're not that smart. They're not going to do
listen to
that.
Woody
Woody Johnson
Johnson.
is
You
too
hear him talk
terrible
about
at
his
his job.
quarterback? You
I
hear him
know.
talk.
That's what I'm saying. Like he is so terrible at his job and owning a team that he's not going to do that because it makes sense. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, so the Jets are kind of off the table. You feel like the Dolphins are trying to find a way to save Mike McDaniel's job there. Like I'm going, okay. I've said Bradley Chubb makes sense. I don't know if the 49ers look at it and say, okay, we don't want to send assets that we're then for somebody that we're not going to be able to keep past this year. So that's maybe what's holding it up for them, because especially if they're going to say, we're not sold that this is a Super Bowl run team. And with the loss of Nick Bosa, so I understand if they're being a little hesitant there.
Like I
And,
was.
and well, look, I was saying that before Bryce Huff went out. But I mean, you have uncertainty. Is Brock Purdy coming back this year? I think he is, but like I'm so frustrated with this, and everybody knows this. I'm so frustrated with the player health department. Apparently, he had a workout before the Falcons game, and it didn't go well. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, why are we pushing this? That is up to the player health department to say this is what you got to do with this. Like if you want him to be ready by December, you've got to put him on ice for 2 weeks. Like you just need to do that at this point. No limited practicing, like no workouts to test it. You're just gonna make the commitment that he is sitting out for the next 2, 3, 4 games, whatever it is, for it to fully heal. Like it drives me absolutely insane. You have a
Bonkers.
player health department that we have had multiple players have setbacks in coming back from injuries after they have been like cleared by the player health department. What is going on with Jacob Cowing? Jacob Cowing pulled his hamstring for a second time the day that the player health department cleared him to return to practice. He pulled his hamstring so bad that he has missed longer than George Kittle, who pulled a hamstring a week later, or a
Yeah,
week
in
and a
the
half later.
game play. Yeah, and Jacob hasn't
And
seen the field. Yeah,
George Kittle said it was a grade 3. It was a grade 3 hamstring pull. So how bad was Jacob Cowings if it's worse than, it's on the far severe end of the grade 3, and he pulled it after the player health department said you're good to go. And it's happened with Jordan Watkins. He aggravated his knee and everything after they sent him back in. Same thing happened with Mac Jones. He re-aggravated the knee after the player health department said he's good to go. I mean, I'm just getting really frustrated with this. And so it's like, so you have uncertainty with Brock Purdy. How are you getting, what trade are you going to make? It has to be somebody that at this point, if they're going to make a trade that can help you this year and next year. So I don't know. There's not a lot of people that make sense. The Jets make sense, but they're too stupid to make that move. Maybe like Jalen Phillips, but he's going to be a big contract, like with the Dolphins, and I think they're trying to keep him as an asset. It's just it's kind of like franchise quarterbacks. Really good edge rushers don't become available very often, and so if you're going and grabbing a guy, you're getting somebody who's going to give you about the same kind of production as Sam Okawanu. I mean, just for real, like that's what you're going to get is somebody on par about that. They're waiting for Yetur Gross-Matos to come back. He's got the hamstring pull. Bryce Huff is going to be back soon. So it's like you go, okay, 6-2 would be a really big deal, but are we going to sacrifice, a pick for next year for somebody that we only need for 1 or 2 games? I'm not sold that they're going to do it. I'm at this point. Like, I think maybe they're going to get an underwhelming trade at the deadline for a team that is clearly out of it. That's somebody that doesn't really move the needle all that much, but gives them depth. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, way too many injuries. Very frustrating. But
we are not trading Bosa. No, sir. Let's as what's the move? What movie is that quote from? Like, get that name out of your dirty mouth.
Yeah. I definitely do not remember. But I do remember that I wanted to bring up to you, what is more intriguing and where do you want to start with? Their offense versus our defense or vice versa?
Well, we can talk about their defense. I mean, because that's the biggest challenge. They have a phenomenal defense down there. They are so good in the passing game. And it really starts with their 2 monster edge players. I mean, they've got some guys that will
They got a Bama guy that you love, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, yeah. D'Amico, I mean,
Well,
not only that,
is the sky blue? Is the grass green?
I'm just saying, like,
I like him too.
Well, yeah, I mean,
He's a stud.
but yeah, I mean, but D'Amico Ryans is a Bama guy. Like, remember that. Like, he's a Bama
he's
guy.
a Niner guy. Well, he's a Niner guy, is what we, the faithful, would tell you.
Well, yeah, but he also is a Bama guy. Like, he was from
I like Ty.
the University of Alabama.
Apple. And no one cares about that either. Are we talking about things that don't matter?
D'Amico is more of a Houston guy, if we really are down to it, because he played in Houston forever.
I know.
Then he's now coaching there. So you can say all you want of that, he's a Niner guy. He's a Houston guy, okay? He's a Houston guy. So, somebody asked him about Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward has got lots of legal troubles. He's not playing there with the Texans. But there, I mean, when you talk about Danielle Hunter, I mean, dude is
Danielle. Like I call him Danielle.
Yeah, Danielle Hunter, Danielle Hunter.
Not to his face. I would not say that to his face. Trust me.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't. I'm really sure you wouldn't. Like,
I am
that would be a good way to end up back in the hospital. Like, I wouldn't. I mean, dude's jacked. Like, you see that dude? He looks like he was chiseled out of marble. But he's a phenomenal player and is playing really well. I mean, you got Will Anderson is just playing out of his mind. He's playing so well. You got the linebackers of Toa, or how many Toas? Toa, and Aziz Al-Shire. I mean, they like D'Amico has fit that system or built that system there and gotten players that really, really fit it. And he knows what they want to do and sets it up to do what they want to do at an extremely high level. So what do I mean by that? What they're going to do is they're going to use those strong edge players and they're going to set a hard edge in the run game. They're going to say, okay, you will not run outside of us. You're going to set a hard edge. He's going to run in quarters or quarter, half a lot. I mean, he did that with the 49ers in 2021 and 2022. We ran a lot of quarters, and that really started really around 2020, more with D'Amico. And I mean, it started in 2019, but we were still a very cover 3 heavy team. In 2020, it was more quarters. Once D'Amico came in, it was like quarters predominant. We went from being a cover 3 team to a cover 4 team. And a lot of that had to do, well, really, it all had to do with being a wide 9 scheme, because your safeties will fill your C gaps, or the gap between the tight end and the tackle. And so you keep them aligned in that way, so that even if there's changes of strength and motions, you can still have the safeties to rally into those C gaps. And so that, like they say, we're going to set a hard edge, and then we're going to get our safeties to fill the C's, and our linebackers are going to fill inside. We're going to have those 2 defensive tackles in there. They're going to be guys that you cannot beat in their gap. And then we're gonna free it up, and our linebackers are going to be fast fill linebackers. They're fast, but they're not always the sideline to sideline kind of players. They're very straight ahead speed and absolute punishing physical players. So they're going to set you in a box. They're going to keep those safeties at 10 to 12 yards, right around the tight ends, and they're going to just have everything moving downhill against your run game. So they are a very vertical attacking defense against the run, and that makes it hard. That is actually makes it very difficult for your wide zone attacking. Okay, because that's based on horizontal movement. So horizontal movement doesn't work well against vertical movement from the defense, because it starts disrupting everything. Your guys are trying to move sideways, and those defenders are moving forwards. And it becomes harder. So we saw some of the more gap scheme against the Falcons, but they were living with that was set up because they were living with the 2-yard runs on the wide zone. We still ran like 20 wide zone runs. Everybody, it seemed like we're all this gap scheme now. And it was like 20 wide zone runs, maybe 18, and then something like 16 gap runs. And actually, I think a couple of those were even mislabeled. I think it was more like 14 gap runs, and there was 2 that were actually inside zone sort of runs. But like they want to do that, and they're going to set that up. They're going to keep you in 3rd and long. And then they're going to let their pass rushers go to work and drop 7 in coverage. And that is why they are so good against the pass game. I mean, you want to know where they're ranked against the pass this year in different passing metrics? They are number 1 against play action. They are number 1 against long time to throw. They are number 1 in without blitzing. They are number 1 in overall passing efficiency. They are number 1 in short passing. They are number 4 in deep passing. They are number 7 against no play action. Like, this is the best passing defense in the league, and it's not close. Yeah. So, I mean, this is not a game you're going to come out there and say, we're going to throw 30 times and win. You come out and throw 30 times in this game, you are going to lose. Like, that is not a recipe to beat this team. They're not good when they blitz, but they rarely have to blitz because they get home with 4 and they drop 7 in coverage, and they stay in that quarters. They got a really tight scheme there, because a lot of times, it's like what we do. They run a lot of split field coverages. They're going to have Stingley and man coverage on one side, and then they're going to zone up the other side and be able to keep 4 and 5 rolled over to your 3 and 4 receiver concepts. So, I mean, they are very, very tough. They make you throw short, then they come and they hit. And they are a very, very good passing defense. So, I mean, this is the toughest defensive matchup that we've had so far. And the Seahawks were a very tough defensive matchup.
So I was just going to say, based on their defense and based on my pickup in fantasy, Eddie Pinheiro and Marcus Tech 2 TD chimed in and said, who's ready for the Eddie Pinheiro 5 field goal special teams player of the week, right when I was just getting ready to say that. So I do think there'll be quite a bit of field goals. That just,
I mean, it's going to be a Fairbairn and Pinheiro game.
yeah.
I mean, and Fairbairn's a good kicker. So I think what's going to be the wild card you have in the passing game is, and this is how the Seahawks the Seahawks attacked the Houston defense was they said, okay, when you're in those split field coverages, you're going to have man on the backside, on the weak side. Can we run play action at the weak side? And it's the Bob plays the blocker on backer or back on backer sort of idea where, okay, if you're going to be in man on that weak side, and say you have and people assume that every time the tight end's on the side that's the strong side. It's not necessarily the case. You can put George Kittle isolated backside, or you can put go two receiver George Kittle and a receiver on that side, being shotgun, have Christian McCaffrey to the left and two receivers, and that's the strong side. But what you do then is you make it look like like an inside zone sort of play action. George Kittle looks like he's going to go block that weak side linebacker, and then he runs down the seam, and you run Derek Stingley off the other side. The Seahawks ran a play just like that, and they ended up getting Arroyo down the right sideline for a big play. And sorry, school's calling me, letting me know that my daughter who's sick is not there. I'm like, yes, I know. But that's one way you can get it going. Another way is when they play a lot of that quarters, what you're going to see then is that's a lot on Azeez Al-Shaair over the middle of the field as far as coveraging. If you can spread him out with your releases, not necessarily with your alignment, but you can release, you release the number 2 down the middle of the field, you release your ones outside, and what that's going to do is pull the curl flat or hook curl defenders in quarters out. That's going to move the middle safeties deep, and that isolates Azeez Al-Shaair on somebody, and you can then use Christian McCaffrey in that way. And so you can say, okay, what I expect in the early scripted portion is Kyle Shanahan to be asking that question of DeMeco Ryans, saying, are you going to live with that matchup, and are you going to stay in this quarters? Because that's a matchup that we're going to win. Again, the Seahawks abused that matchup a couple times against the Texans. Was Azeez Al-Shaair in the middle? They would do exactly that. They would run the number 2 vertical. They'd run a flat route, and so it would widen everything on that side of the field and isolate Azeez Al-Shaair in his zone against a tight end or running back. And they were able to get some really good production in the passing game that way. So I expect Kyle to ask this question: are you going to live with that matchup, DeMeco? Or are you going to try and bring your safety down and not play quarters? And you're going to bring that safety into a buzz sort of coverage and essentially bracket Christian McCaffrey. When you run these split field coverages, how are you going to account for Christian McCaffrey on those choice routes? Because one way that we attack split field is we'll have one passing concept to the 3 receiver side that works well against their common split field zones. If it's going to be cover 4 or cover 3, it may be a cover 3 answer over there. And if they go cover 4, well, they always play man on the backside. So we're going to have a man beater, a choice concept to the backside, which is a corner route paired with a choice route underneath it. So it creates interference. And so you just choose, whichever way that man cover guy on you. If he goes outside, you break in. If he goes inside, you break out. So, how do they account for that? If that's Christian McCaffrey over there, if you're running these choice routes, these choice concepts to the man side of the split field coverage, are you willing to live with that? Are you shading one of your zone players over to that side? That tells me now I'm going to work more of these concepts to the 3 side, and that's where you're going to start focusing your passing attention, and they start taking or looking at that. So you're really going to ask DeMeco, how do you account for Christian McCaffrey, the potential matchup problems you have in coverage, the way you do things against a guy in Christian McCaffrey that can really exploit that. So that's going to be the question. And that's where I see being able to attack. If you're trying to rely on Kendrick Bourne beating Derek Stingley, that's a bad approach. If you're trying to rely on Juwan Jennings beating Derek Stingley, that's a bad approach.
My thing is, week in and week out, I'm waiting for defenses to take away McCaffrey in the passing game, and
they try
week after week. If that's your try, I'm like, what are you doing in practice? He's not the fastest player in the NFL.
That's how you end up with Kendrick Bourne having career games.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good point. I guess I didn't look at it like that. It opens up then for a guy who you on paper you're like, well, we feel like our regular defense will just take care of him. And then all of a sudden he's just so open. And then he gets hot and then you start to look for him as well, I would think. You know, some of
Well,
those
I mean,
catches
yeah,
were
I mean,
like,
Mac Jones definitely leans into him more. He's going to look
yeah,
to him for against certain looks. It's not that he like it doesn't work quite the way we sometimes it gets put out there of like, well, he's going to look for this guy against a certain look. If it's
sure.
man coverage, he's going to look that way. And like for example, if they're playing cover one man and he's split way outside and he's running a deep in route, you may look that way. If he's in the slot running a post and it's cover one man, like Mac ain't looking that way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not in the
but
cards.
but at the same point, like that's why you have Christian McCaffrey over here, and you're seeing like lurk defenders go and double Christian McCaffrey, and so the middle of the field's open on those slants, on those short posts, on those basic routes, right? Those are working in because defenders are playing their technique as the lurk's going to be there, but that lurk is keeping eyes to Christian McCaffrey. You're seeing some of these zones that the intermediate areas are there because you have 2 and 3 underneath defenders locking eyes on there. One of the things that George Kittle, he didn't have a catch last week, but they had a lot of eyes on George Kittle everywhere he went. Like that, you could see the Atlanta
Oh yeah.
defenders were making sure after play action, after any sort of run action, like everybody knew where George Kittle had lined up to begin with, and every underneath defender is turning and trying to locate George Kittle.
And it opened up a
Like
catch for McCaffrey.
it opened up a
That
catch
last
for
game. For
McCaffrey.
sure, I remember seeing it.
It opened up a catch for Sky Moore, who was
Sky
able to get
Moore.
like a
That's
19-yard
hilarious.
catch.
Yeah, Sky
Well, I
Moore.
mean, but again, like if the 49ers are
Gosh,
running
we
play
are
action, are you
decimated.
going to account for George Kittle or Sky Moore? You're going
No,
to
for
account for
sure.
George Kittle.
I'm
Now
just
there was one throw that Mac Jones made to Christian McCaffrey that I was like, oh, he would have wanted that one back because he had George Kittle. It's one of those that Brock Purdy, with his anticipation, the way he throws, he hits George Kittle, and it probably was going to be like a 40 or 50-yard explosive pass because the backside safety, the front side safety wasn't in position. And the backside safety has turned his hips away, and so George had the potential to catch that, beat the backside safety on the corner and rumble for about 30 or 40 yards. Like the lane was there. It was one of those I was like, "Oh, yeah, that close." And then we wouldn't be talking about, George didn't have any production. What happened in that game? Like he just moved a little bit to like literally a tenth of a second too quick through his progression, and didn't see that the inbreaker was there, and it was there. I was like, that would have been a huge play. But like Christian McCaffrey, it's like you try and take him away and you're going to open it up for these almost, the no-name group of receivers, the no-name defense, the no-name receiver group, where Kendrick Bourne's going to have 180 yards. But then they don't take him away and he's getting 10 catches for, like 8 yards a pop. And he's just like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. So yeah.
so the chat
Strawberries going after
I
guys.
know. That's what I was looking at.
Look, I have a couple very I have a couple very selective mutes on my socials, so I miss a lot of, like, I see people arguing or posting things back to different people, and I'm like, I haven't seen anything about this. It's refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, we are there. It's the talk of the NFL now at this point. You cannot deny it that Mac Jones is absolutely a top 5 story in the NFL. When you
I'd
look
say
at
top 5 quarterback. I was like,
no, it's a top 5 storyline
I'm just that's where I'm at.
for the global NFL. If you talk about everything, the Colts are a story, right? You talk about
The
everything.
feel good story.
Well, and not just that, I'm just
The
saying,
redemption arc.
where without being a homer, that Mac Jones is an NFL storyline. And so, which I love because it's better than having, look, there's a lot of backups right now. Look how bad Carson was wincing last night. I
Oh
literally,
gosh. I mean,
literally, by the way,
that was rough to watch. Like,
and,
honestly, it
and he
felt
was a
like
good quarterback. We thought he beat
and
us.
Yeah, it felt like the rock in Rocky 3, throw the towel. Like that's what it was. It was like,
Oh,
gosh, or no, Rocky 4, sorry. Rocky 4 against Ivan Drago.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh. That was rough. But no, the Mac Jones story is great. Mac Jones is, I feel great for him because he's gonna turn this into a massive payday. And you know what? Good for him. I love seeing a guy go out there, ball out,
Yeah, an
lift
Alabama
the team
guy.
up,
It's
lift a
Johnny's
team. No,
guy.
no, 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 no.
Here we go.
It's not even about
I
being an
know.
Alabama guy.
I'm
I
giving
just
you
love
crap.
I
I'm
love
giving you
this. I
crap.
love the idea of a guy that looked like he was going to be, a star in this league, a household name. That was well touted coming out of college, first round pick, goes to the Patriots, has
Does
everything on
well.
him about being the heir apparent for Tom Brady. They expect him to be year 18 Tom Brady, year 1.
Yeah. And he's
It becomes
good.
so
He was
overwhelming.
good year
I
one.
mean,
That's the
he
thing.
was, and to see that, then it's like everybody is bagging on him, that this is he's just this terrible quarterback, LOL, lulls, sort of a thing. And now he's on his way to having generational wealth. I mean, like the dude is about to
Yeah.
go get paid and get paid very richly. Just look at Sam Darnold, how much money Sam Darnold has made the last 2 years. That the Mac Jones is heading down that path. And I'm so happy for him. Like that, to work your way out of that and seem like a genuinely good dude. Um, who's a great
Players
teammate.
like
I'm so
yeah.
happy for him.
Yeah, we're excited that he is our backup again as you take a look around the league. All right,
Yeah.
so let's get into our maybe final thoughts on the game, how you see it shaking out. Um, how do you see this one shaking out?
I see this as a low scoring game. I mean, the title of everything says it exactly. This is old school football incoming. This is going to be a lot of hard hitting, a lot of pain. I don't know if anybody saw the Michael Irvin rant he had the other day, where it was some players were talking about like guys like Jordan Jefferson, that they're just so much farther ahead and more than the players back in the day. Like Dion couldn't have covered Dion or Jordan Jefferson. He couldn't have covered Jamar Chase, and everything. And Michael Irvin, he almost like goes off the deep end. He's like, I played through pain. That's what this game is gonna be like.
Zoinks!
Yeah, it was like, whoa, like his
Gotta
eyes are
save that
bugging out.
screenshot. Can someone
Um,
save that screenshot and send it to us? Like, can you pause it and pain? Good
uh,
lord.
but yeah, anyways, like it's gonna be a play through pain game. I mean, this is gonna be a lot of hard hitting. It's gonna be a game that maybe the team that loses the fewest players in this game. I hate to say this, but the team that loses the fewest players during this game is gonna win. The thing about this game is gonna be which quarterback fumbles in the pocket. That's what I feel like this game is gonna come down to, because both teams are gonna struggle running the ball. Neither team's going to be able to just pass the ball around the yard, especially, I don't think Nico Collins plays this week. I really don't. Things are not trending in the right direction. So Nico Collins is most likely out. Christian Kirk's got the hamstring. He's going to be out. He did not participate. Now we were all super high on Jaden Higgins coming out. They got Jaden Higgins, but they haven't hardly played him. So I don't know what's going on there with Jaden Higgins. But I mean, he is a threat. But I mean, it's like CJ Stroud has leaned on Nico Collins in a serious way this year. Well, he's not going to play. I really doubt he's going to play. He would have to get cleared tomorrow, is how it would work. And I don't think it's trending in the right direction. He had to look like a pretty bad concussion. So I mean, this is going to be a game that points are hard to come by, and it's going to be who turns the ball over at what point on the field. Who takes points off their board
On the wrong side of their field.
and
Yeah,
who
it's
puts
crazy.
points on the other team's board. Do you have that horrible turnover at your at the opponent's 25 and take points off your board? Do you have that turnover at your own 25 and put points on the other team's board? That's what it's going to come down to. So
So score prediction.
my score prediction is going to be 13-10. I think this is going to be a low scoring game.
Wow.
I really do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Give us yours in the chat. I'm going to say 1917. I'm going to go a little bit more
He's going to say we score 5 times.
because the field goal game. I think we get one touchdown and the rest literally are field goals is what I'm thinking. So I think because Eddie is that good I mean, we can kick dang near from the 50-yard line. I mean, our offense can get towards the 50 enough times, but the bend don't break defense of Houston is good. I give them credit. But I like our juice. So Farscape Forever says 15-13. Yeah, we're
Well,
all
yeah,
in
I mean,
that field goal
I would
game. Like,
I would take our fullback over theirs too.
well, yes, of course. Michael Norris checking in 24-17. Man, that's more of a ballsier pick to think we'd get 3 touchdowns on them on the road. I
think
mean,
he's
I'd love
saying
it.
they're going to put 24 on us. No,
No,
I'm just
get
kidding. I'm
out of
just
here.
kidding.
Hey, I'd
But
love
I
CMC to get three tutties. My fantasy team would perform very nicely.
I mean, these two field goal kickers are quality guys. I mean,
Yeah,
Pinheiro and
next
Fairburn.
level.
So this makes me wonder, Adam. So I'm going to ask you about this, as I think it
Right.
was Brett Coleman put this on X. He said it was after the Packers Cowboys tie game that ended in a tie. He's like, instead of ending in a tie, what they should do is they should just start having each team have their kickers kick a field goal from the
With football.
25-yard, start at the 25-yard line,
And
and
then
then move back 5
okay,
yards each kick
yeah.
until one of the kickers misses. That would be a really fascinating game in this game against where you have two really good kickers, Fairbairn and Pinheiro. What do you think about that, Adam?